So glad to have you here. And we have a very special guest today, one of our absolute all time favorite Writers Bridge guests, one of the greatest people in publishing. We'll tell you all about her in just a moment. But I think we have over 200 people here. So welcome, everybody. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Welcome to the Writers Bridge. So, platform. As writers, what online behavior actually moves the needle? What is a waste of our time? Should you even be on social media? And if you are, which platforms? Do you need video? What about a newsletter or a Substack? It gets confusing. So today we are going to look at social media simplified. Now, our guest today has been writing and reporting on the world of publishing since MySpace. She has seen the rise and fall of Medium, Twitter, and many more. And she's done the research and she knows the numbers. Does Book Talk actually sell books? And if so, which ones? Does it matter if you post video or stick to text? Is LinkedIn turning into a social site? And what should be driving the choices that you are making about your writer platform, most important of all? So I'm Allison K Williams. I'm the co-founder of this here Writers Bridge. And since 2011, I've built my platforms by blogging, publishing essays and stories, and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, RIP. I swear by an email list, but I need to be using it a little bit more effectively. Sharla, how about you?
Thank you. Hi, Allison. Hi, Jane. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Happy to have you all here. Um, yeah, I was going to tell you about what's coming up on Craft Talks. Um, so, but I'll talk a little bit about social media. I do a little bit of social media in my personal life. I find that I'm a little bit confused about what works and what doesn't work. I find that for mostly for me, that newsletters and emails are the best way to reach people. So I don't know how that. I'm interested to dive in and see what Jane has to say about that.
And we definitely have a lot of newsletters going out relative to both the Writers Bridge and
Yeah.
Craft Talks. We're going to talk about all of these social media and platform building dilemmas. But first, hey, Sharla, what's coming up with Craft Talks webinars?
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk about that. So we have two events coming up that will help build with building your platform and finding your people. So I'm sure that applies to everybody here. First up this Wednesday, we have a webinar uh, about writing, which I know sounds a little meta, but stay with me. Andrea A. Firth is teaching essays on the writing life, how to write, publish, and get noticed. And here's the thing, when you write about your craft, you're not just sharing what you know, you're actually building your platform and connecting with your community. It's how you get published, develop your voice, and join those literary communities where you really want to belong. So whether you're emerging, experienced, it's a great way of getting seen. And then we also have another platform building session that's super hands-on. Stephen Knezovich is doing a 2-day deep dive called Send, Build, Grow, Strategies for a Sustainable Newsletter Practice. I've learned so much from Stephen working with him during our time at Creative Nonfiction, and also as he continues to really dive deep into how to newsletter best. And so newsletters, if you're not familiar, is a huge way to build your platform and gather a community around you. And this one is about making it fun. So it's not a chore that you have to do, but actually enjoyable, sustainable practice. So that's happening on 2 Saturdays. Like I said, it's a deep dive. It's February 21st and 28th. It's two
And we
hours
will
each day.
drop the link for that into the chat.
Yes.
I also want to say that coming up on February 4th, that's next Wednesday, I am going to be teaching with and for Jane Friedman, Writer Mind, Marketing Mind, which is all about how do we approach this in a big way? How do we reposition ourselves from buy my book, please buy my book, you're going to hurt my feelings if you don't buy my book, to like, hey, I have something I'm excited to share with you and I know exactly who is going to be excited to hear about it. So let us dive into our episode today. Hey, Sharla, who is our fantastic guest?
Well, if you haven't heard yet, it's Jane Friedman. Jane Friedman has spent her entire career working in the book publishing industry with a focus on author education and trend reporting. She's the editor of The Bottom Line, the essential publishing industry newsletter for authors. Highly recommend this. We'll drop the link in the chat. And was named Publishing Commenter of the Year by Digital Book world in 2023. Jane's latest book is The Business of Being a Writer, second edition, which received a starred review from the Library Journal. In addition to serving on grant panels for the National Endowment for the Arts and the Creative Works Fund, she works with organizations such as the Authors Guild to bring transparency to the business of publishing. Welcome, Jane. And here is my first question for you. What social media are you on, and how do you post? Do you post everything by yourself? Do you schedule it ahead? I mean, how much time and detail and attention do you give to your social media accounts?
Unmute yourself, Jane.
Thank you. Over time, I have spent less and less of my energy on social media. And partly that is because of how long I have been active now, going on, 15 or 20 years on social media. And because I have a really robust website and email newsletter list, that does make me less reliant on social media. So I just want to put that out there. I don't think that using my personal use as an example is necessarily beneficial. I think that's true of everyone, frankly, and I'm sure I'll talk more about that. But just so everyone knows what my recipe is, if you can call it that, I generally focus on posting new content on Facebook, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Substack, and Threads. And sometimes the posts are a little different from each other. Sometimes they're the same, but I'm basically sharing a link. I don't try to trick the system by using an image and putting the link in the comments for the most part. I just put it up and I don't worry about the reach. I don't pay to boost. I don't try to game the system, et cetera, et cetera. So I am there, and then I respond to the comments if there's discussion. And I monitor a little bit throughout the day. Lately, my time has just been really constrained, so I'm not doing as much interaction on social media on other people's posts as I would like. But if I were doing things in a more ideal way, I would be much more active on other people's posts, probably particularly on Substack. This is Substack Notes. I want to be clear, I'm not using Substack to send my newsletters. You can do that. That's not my use. But I still got a lot of use out of Substack Notes. That's the Twitter-like feed, because there's so many writing and publishing people on Substack, and so many people talking about the sorts of issues that I write and publish on and that I care about. So even though I'm not publishing newsletters on Substack, I can get a lot of visibility there just by talking, having conversations, being part of the mix.
Jane, I love this because I'm hearing three key things that I think we're going to be talking a lot about this episode, which is number one, you are consistent. You're showing up as often as you possibly can. And number two, you're not creating brand new content for every single thing. You write an article or you have a blog on your site, you love it, you post the link, you post a quote, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, maybe a few tweaks here and there. And number three, you've narrowed in on the platforms you actually want to be on, and that's where you're spending your time. And that sounds really incredibly key. Do you want to add anything to that before I lunge into the next question?
Well, I know one of the questions we're going to be tackling is which platform should you use? And people ask if should I use the same ones you're using? And I just want to say that it's kind of like asking me, if you were to move to Cincinnati, which neighborhood should you go live in? Should I go move to your neighborhood, Jane? And I'd be like, I don't know. I have a lot of questions for you before I can tell you which neighborhood is right for you. Or if you wanted to meet people in Cincinnati because you were coming here, well, I need to know a lot more about you before I can tell you how to meet the sorts of people you would enjoy being friends with. So it's very personal. It's social. It's called social media.
And I love that. I absolutely love that, because I think we've gotten so much into the media element that we've almost forgotten about the social part. Like, I think a lot of my platform came out of, there were people I liked to talk to, so I talked to them, and I made my sentences nicer because we were talking in public.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got to ask, yesterday or the day before, Facebook started serving me previews of explicit erotica novel websites, complete with descriptions of sex acts in the ad text and fairly vivid photographs. X is offering AI that is taking clothing off of women and children, and nobody seems to care. What the actual heck is going on right now?
Well, I haven't seen the Facebook thing yet, thank God.
Block,
But
block, block, block.
yikes. And of course, I'm not even using X any longer. I departed
Yeah.
quite some time ago. So, everyone has their own threshold for the sort of nonsense and toxicity that occurs. I feel like it happens on every platform in one form or another. There's always something there that is going to not be to your taste, to your liking, to your political views, to your comfort level. So my my position, especially on the platforms I choose to use, is that all of the conversations and topics that I am not interested in, that I'm not there to engage in, as you do, Allison, it's block, block, mute, mute. And I do think the tools have become much better at allowing you to block and mute specific things that you just don't even want to be exposed to because it drains your energy.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, okay, with all that in mind, what is the value for writers in being part of social media as part of our platform? Like, why should writers even bother?
Well, I would think of it this way. If you want to meet people in your profession, if you want to build relationships that support the work that you're putting out into the world or the message that you want to share, it takes a lot of time, energy, and money to do that in person. And so I see social media and a lot of online spaces not necessarily as a shortcut, but as an open office door to basically anyone on the planet who has a similar message, story, or have common interests and values. Obviously, everything depends here on your approach, your ability to engage and not come off as someone who is begging, look at me, please like me, please follow me. That's not what I'm advocating. But some of my best relationships, personal and professional, have come out of very casual and informal back and forth on social media. Now, granted, this was during a unicorns and rainbows time that doesn't necessarily exist. But again, if you're able to block out the bad and look for the good, it's still possible to build those relationships from the comfort of your own home. Although I do think it's much more powerful if you can bring the two together, whether you're meeting people in person first, great, maintain that relationship and encourage communication in between maybe the years that you don't see each other in person, keep the connection alive. Or if you meet people online first, you can build better trust and more ability to partner once you understand, oh, this person is really who I thought they was. In fact, they're even better than I thought they were from meeting them online.
Jane, how do you start those conversations or develop the conversations that you want to be in? What is the best way to get started? Say you're on social media, you see somebody who says something interesting. For those of us who are early in our social media attempts, what do we do next?
Okay, rule number one in my book is please don't ask something of the person you're engaging with. So often I will post something and someone will come back to me and say, absolutely, I wrote the same thing and you should go read it. Or, they want me to rebroadcast or share or do something for them when we haven't even had a single conversation. That's really difficult unless I know you by reputation already. Like I instantly recognize your name and I'm like, oh yes, I better read what they have said because they are a VIP or an influencer or whatever. But if you're just someone I haven't met, then the best first step is to say something thoughtful, add to the conversation. You don't have to offer like flattery or butter people up, but have like an authentic engagement and then repeat, like not repeat 5 times that day or repeat every single day that in a way that feels a little stalkerish, but just have moments of connection or point out things that they might find useful that actually have nothing to do with you and do not look self-interested.
Right.
I like that. The formula that I often say is 10 gives for every ask. Make sure that you are liking, you are contributing, you are answering other people's questions, you are sharing useful resources, you are saying, wow, the picture of your grandchild is adorable, if you genuinely feel that way. I am not a children person, but I understand some people find them delightful. But the more that you can focus on giving, the less frustrating it is to feel like, well, why am I not receiving?
You have to be interested to be interesting. Someone famous said that, but it's absolutely true.
Right. Is it faux pas to post on social media about a book you are querying?
I wouldn't say it's a faux pas, but I don't know what it accomplishes. And certainly, if you have, once you have an agent, they really don't want you sharing information about the submissions process as a general rule. But what I often recommend is like in your bio or profile, you can say that you're currently, querying such and such work. Just the briefest mention to give people a sense of where you're at in the ecosystem. But I wouldn't be posting every month, still querying this novel that no one wants.
Absolutely. And I think this ties into Nancy's question in the chat too. And then we're going to dive into some specific social media stuff. Nancy asks, how do you start when you aren't finished with your book yet?
Right.
The stuff that we're discussing from my perspective has nothing to do with your book. If you're only on social media because you want to get published or land a book deal, you have already failed. Now, that might be a little harsh, but social media is a long game. Like this is about, like I said, relationships. It is not meant to be transactional. I'm going to get on Twitter today and increase my chances of a great advance. That's not how it works. So, I mean, I feel like I was lucky in a sense to come to social media before people saw it as transactional or as having some end goal. I was genuinely curious. I was fascinated by what was happening. I was like, I want to experiment. I want to try this out and see what people respond to. I can't believe that person posted that. That is a good way. So,
Yeah.
so try if you can. I know it's hard to separate out whatever is compelling you to consider social media from, having a good experience that is actually satisfying or contributing to, let's say, overall life quality. If social media is detracting from your energy, from, it's given what's happening in the world, I know that this is hard, but if it's becoming draining, you have to step back and look at how can I change what I'm doing so that it's not something I'm dreading or forcing myself into.
I agree. And the way I often phrase it is nobody wants to be your customer. They want to be your friend. And the more you can just be who you are as a person, and that's not every single part of you. That's the parts of you that you are willing to publicly share. There is nobody with a checkbox going, oh man, Jane Friedman never shows her boobs online, and Allison never talks about how terrible her relationship is. They must be fake. Like nobody is ticking off your vulnerabilities. You get to decide what you want to share. So Lisa has a great question in the chat. Looking at the social media landscape in 2026, what do we see as different or changing? Let me start with, how is Substack doing? Like, I originally thought that Substack was going to be a waste of time, but I got like 400 or so subscribers, and then I exported to check and see, and I had 167 people who were not otherwise on any of my mailing lists. They were genuinely brand new people, and I think they almost all came from notes. I'm not as regular on Substack as you are, but I'm enjoying it when I'm there. I've seen a couple of book deals come out of newsletters. What's your take on Substack right now?
Well, it's a many-headed monster. I find it really hard to talk about Substack because there's so many ways that you can make use of it. So there are some people who are using it primarily as a subscription service for their newsletter. There are other people like me that are using it more as a social media network. And then it has other functionality that I'm not even going to get into because it's too in the weeds. But I would say that it's very powerful for visibility and discoverability, especially in the literary community, because people do tend to like it more than the alternative social media options. And there has been an emphasis in recent years on email newsletter platforms or newsletter building. So you kind of get both in one. I don't, full disclosure, I don't fully trust Substack. But in the same way that I don't fully trust any big tech platform, like they're not earning a profit. You see them launching a lot of initiatives that I secretly roll my eyes at, like Substack TV just launched. Okay, whatever. And who knows what they're going to do? Like they're going to roll out some ads, which they probably need to do. Can't rely on them as the solution to all of your problems. As long as you can keep that in mind, use it for the way that it helps you or for what it's worth to your to your career.
I agree. Yeah, and you never know. They might shut down tomorrow. They might suddenly decide they're going to bill us all every month. So if you're on Substack, export your list of people who have subscribed every single month, once a month.
Yeah.
Charlotte, what else should we ask about in terms of current social media?
Well, I saw this on in the chat as well. People are already talking about book talk. I mean, Jane, what's your opinion? Does it actually sell books? What kind of books? Did TikTok start? Didn't TikTok start as a publisher of some sort? Oh no.
Jane, you're breaking up a bit. I'm wondering if your Wi-Fi has become unsteady there for a second.
Well, she's freezing because it's freezing where we are.
Jane, let us know when you're back. One of the things that I'm noticing about TikTok is, and this just happened in the last 48 hours, TikTok spun off an American version of their company. And people are already saying, oh, I think the algorithm is working differently. I'm seeing different things. I'm being fed different things. And some people are quitting TikTok because of it. They're feeling like they're not seeing what they used to see there and what they wanted to see there. TikTok did start a brief publisher called Eighth Note Press, and they went under almost immediately. I think they only released 2 or 3 books in there. Samantha notes in the chat that some people are going to something called Skylight. There is a rumor that it is political, that people are being blocked for that. So we're going to keep an eye on TikTok and see what's happening. We've got Jane back. Let us go ahead and pin her again. And please do keep those questions coming in the chat. Sharla, can you find Jane in the participant list and spotlight her? And those of you who are here, do know that we are really eager to hear your questions. So please do go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and answer Deborah's question, which is, by joining my Substack, people give me consent to land in their inbox. Can I transfer that to another newsletter like MailChimp? Technically, no. But what you can do is you warn them on Substack, hey, I'm getting ready to switch over to MailChimp. And then you send them all an invitation from MailChimp that says, hey, my newsletter is now over at MailChimp. And I think, and I'll check this with Jane, I think you could even do it as an opt-out rather than as an opt-in. Jane, if we get a list of subscribers on Substack, are we allowed to just add them if we switch to another platform?
I think what you said is true. Technically, I'm not sure. It's going to probably depend on what service you migrate them to and what sort of protections they have in place, because it's really bad for them if you import hundreds or thousands of subscribers who then report you as spam. That affects everyone on the service. But I've seen people do it successfully, so I wouldn't be scared about it.
I know I got a letter from Kate McKean, Agents and Books, and she just basically said, hey, I'm transferring to Ghost. That's where you're getting this from now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
What about LinkedIn? Is it turning into a social site? You're very active there, Jane. What do you see happening with LinkedIn?
Yeah, around the time that I left Twitter, I noticed that LinkedIn was actually my biggest social media platform. I'm up to about 100,000 followers. I can't even tell you how that happened, other than I've been on LinkedIn forever and I've been consistent. Consistency. LinkedIn is interesting if you're in white collar professions, if you're in business professions, if you're marketing to more of a business audience. I'm not going to say novelists and memoirists shouldn't go there, but you might find it less useful for you. But for me, a lot of the publishing industry is there, active there, having conversations. And so it's a really of the three-legged stool that I sit on, social media wise, it's one of the 3 legs.
I love that. Now, both Kim and Alyssa have read my mind with their questions in the chat. Platform is always different for fiction and nonfiction writers. And I always think that fiction writers are very lucky that an amazing story or amazing writing can sell a book with no platform at all. But I do think there's some use for fiction writers having a platform. How do you see fiction writers being helped by platform?
Well, it helps you get a second book deal, because if you have 0 platform, or you don't care about platform, or you decide it doesn't apply to you, It's going to make it very hard to land the second book deal if your first book doesn't seem to get any support or sales or critical reception, etc. Anyone who wants to explore this further should probably pay attention to Lee Stein at Attention Economy. That's a Substack where she talks about that. She's a novelist, and she advocates more strongly than I do that every author think about this question, every novelist think about this question of how to directly reach their readers. I do think the publisher plays a really significant role when it comes to fiction and children's, because they're trying to get, the traditional industry behind a book. That's the booksellers and the librarians, and that matters. But the author still has a really significant role to play, and I wouldn't just sit around hoping or waiting for the publisher to do what they're responsible for.
And that ties into Susan's question. What can a writer do to connect with readers if the ideal reader is not the writer? Her book is YA. I know we've also got Gay Laubert here. She's writing middle grade. They are not in that demographic, but they still want to reach potential readers. How much are they selling to the readers? How much are they selling to the parents and the librarians? What kind of social media do you do when you're a grown-up talking to kids?
Yeah, so you're targeting the teachers, the educators, the librarians, the influencers, all of the people who get books into kids' hands. I do want to say with YA, I find it has more in common with the adult market. It's read by majority adults, so don't assume that it's just kids who are reading those books, who will probably have a very successful effort speaking directly to the reader if you're in the YA space, especially with Book Talk, which I know I got cut off. We can always go back to that if you want.
Oh, yes. Go back to that, Jane. That'd be awesome. Tell us your opinions about
Yeah.
Book Talk.
It sells books. Who knew? This is something I've been reporting on for 5 years. I do not use TikTok myself, but I've talked to the authors and the experts and the industry people who will stand up and tell you Book Talk is one of the most important phenomenon to push fiction sales and all book sales since forever. Like before TikTok, people would poo-poo inside the industry, poo-poo social media.
Oh, Jane, you went on
Jane,
mute.
we have just lost your voice. I know you didn't mute yourself. I'm wondering if your headphone jogged loose in there or your microphone jogged loose. Take a quick check. Let's see if we can bring you back. It's okay, Jane. We love you and we are here for you.
You're back,
you're
you're
back.
back.
You're back. You're back.
Am I back? Okay. I have no idea what's going on. Okay.
It's totally cool. Jane, everybody gets getting to be here for free. We are just grateful for your time.
That's right. That's right. We'll work
So
with it.
what I was saying is that everyone in the industry poo-pooed social media until TikTok came around, and then everyone started to quantify just how much this was driving sales. Still the case. It applies to all genres, all types of authors, all ages, but it is closely associated with fiction, romance, and romantasy, but not solely. It's a big platform. You will find anyone there.
Yeah. I do wonder. I just downloaded an app where it's just readers. They're just getting together talking about books that they love. I do wonder like how that's moving books as well. I mean, I know you can't go and promote your work on there, but being part of a reader group might be a way of also finding people, your
Yes.
audience.
Yes.
The one I'm using right now is called Fable. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this. I think it might be brand new, but it's pretty great. So I have a question from Nancy. You mentioned your website, Jane. How does it fit into all of this? How does author website, like, how do you reach people with your author website? It seems pretty static.
Well, I am what people would call a creator participating in the creator economy, which means that I have a website full of content that people can discover. If they're on social media, they'll be led back to my website to read that content. If they receive emails from me, it will direct them to my website to read the content. If they Google, how do I do X? What's happening with Book Talk? How do I build a platform? They will be led to my website. So that ultimately means I have six-figure traffic to my website that's working for me 24/7, that I don't have to do anything to support other than keep the website up and running, no small thing, and just ensure that content is well maintained and I'm adding to it, more than a dozen pieces of content every week. So that's why my website is critical. It's the foundation, along with the email.
Should a writer have a website up even before they have a book out? And should the website focus on what they're writing or them as a person?
It should focus on you as an author because I assume that your career and what you write will change from year to year. It's not just about a single book, it's about your body of work and your career. I do recommend getting it up sooner rather than later, if only so you can start to crack the nut of what you want to say about yourself, what platform will you use, uh, what headshot am I going to put up there? Or how will I write my bio? Like there are a lot of questions that I think instill a little bit of panic and anxiety, and I would rather see writers move through that before it's time to have that site up and performing.
So, what platform needs to be in place before an author starts marketing their book? Do you
Before they
feel?
start marketing their book. It's going to depend on the type of book we're talking about.
Okay.
And what marketing you do is going to differ depending on whether you actually have a book deal or not. So if we can get more specific with that question, I can answer it better.
Well, I think this might tie into Angela's question as well, which is, would you suggest multiple websites if you write in multiple genres? And I would say running one website is hard enough. Just run one website, run a really good one website, says the girl who currently has like 4 websites and is in the process of unifying them because it's a real pain in the butt to supervise them all. Think of your website as your business card. It's a place where you can centralize what you do, whether that is, oh, hey, I'm doing special readings right now, or I just got my book deal, or hey, here is me looking like a legit professional person who can follow directions as agents look me up online and consider my book. Jane, what do we want to have in place as we start querying? Like, what would an agent or a publisher be looking for if they Google our name?
So they're going to be looking at the website if you have one. They'll be looking at your social media presence. They'll be looking for any other context where your name might come up. And they're asking 2 questions. If you're a nonfiction author, where you're probably expected to have a platform, if an agent is looking at you, then they're going to see what are the indicators of a platform here. I don't mean social media following, but just how does this people reach the readership for their book? How does that happen? And if they can't find any evidence you're engaged with your readership, whether it's through speaking, teaching, leadership, community involvement, social media, newsletter, etc., they're going to say, "Oh, I don't know if this person is ready for prime time." Again, this is for agents, big New York publishing deals. For fiction, when agents go looking about for your name or website, they're looking to see, well, I want to work with this person over many years. I call it the airport test. It's like a stress test. If I got stuck in an airport with this person for 24 hours, would I still want to see them again or communicate with?
And Jane, we've again lost your voice and you've frozen up. So I'm going to continue your thought there because I'm pretty sure I know where you headed, which is we all want to know, if we were flying with you to a wonderful book event in another country and we got stuck in the airport, would we actually enjoy spending time with you? Would it be worth it? Would we feel like, oh yeah, this is a great person? Because when someone takes on our book, they're agreeing to work with us for free for a sustained period of time before anybody gets paid. Jane, I think you're back. Jane, you are not back yet. Liz asks, suggestions on best platforms to host website. CJ adds, she loves Green Geeks. WordPress is nice and easy. Wix is nice and easy. Kim asks, if you have a social platform, does it have to be under your name or can you create a general page? I like my privacy. Kim, you don't have to use your full name or your real name, but it's useful if people can identify you as a person so that they feel like they can actually bond with you and they understand who you are. We had a great question earlier that I saw earlier in the chat about, so if I'm a memoirist, what do I actually put on there? Somebody wants to know, can you write about your family? What do you put on there regularly? Somebody else wants to know, if I put material on my website, does that mean that I cannot later publish it somewhere else? So it's up to you what you want to put on there. But the main thing I'd say is identify what your readers want. Identify who in your audience needs your words and what you want to share with them. So, for example, I write a craft book. It's called Seven Drafts. But before that, my audience was writers. And what I wanted to do was share my expertise about writing for free for the people who needed that information. And so my platform became, I wrote blogs for the Brevity blog, which is a literary blog where we write about the craft and writing process of nonfiction and memoir. I wrote blogs for Jane Friedman. Jane covers all kinds of genres. And what those did for me was, number one, when I write a nice meaty blog, 700 to 1100 words, it means that people understand what I have to say. They take me a little more seriously. They know that I am a person who says something that they find valuable, and they get used to taking my advice seriously, which makes them more of an audience for my book later on. The second thing that happens there is that gives me additional content to share on all my other platforms. I can take 3 quotes from that Brevity blog and I can go, okay, let's put 3 quotes on Twitter. Let's put 2 quotes on Substack. Let's cross-post this blog on Facebook, and then people will click over and read it from there. Let me make a little Instagram carousel. Carousels are hot right now, with a series of quotes from the blog on it and an invitation to click through. And so by creating content that speaks directly to your audience, material that you actually like sharing and talking about and reading, it provides you the kind of stuff that you need to put on all of the other places that you want to put out in the world. Natalie has a great question, which is, what should you do if you share a name with somebody else who is famous and has the same name? This is a great question here, because when I first started writing as Allison Williams, there were 2 other Allison Williamses who were very famous at the time. One was the actress Allison Williams, daughter of the newscaster Brian Williams, and who was at the time one of the stars of the TV show Girls. So her star was in the ascendancy. She was very big. The other one was a former Miss West Virginia turned newscaster who had just been busted for having conjugal relations with her cameraman in the back of her news van. And neither of these were things that I wanted to come up when people Googled my name. That's why I have a K in the middle of my name. It is not actually my middle initial. I took the K for 2 reasons. Number one, because it is an unusual letter. At the time, there were no other Allison K Williams around town. The other reason I picked it was because it was to honor my friend Kate, who was kind of a writing muse for me before she passed, and I wanted to keep that memory alive with the K in my name. And so that's why I always have to leave a little note for copy editors, which it is K with no period, because it doesn't actually stand for anything. Hey, we've got Jane back. Jane has done a full reboot. Sharla, let's find Jane in there and go ahead and spotlight her. I think I've got her. There we go. Welcome back, Jane.
Hey, can I just blame the foot of snow outside? I don't know.
You totally can. And Jane, while you were gone, we just talked about websites. We talked about what do you do if you share the same name with somebody else. What we would love to dive into a little bit more is, all authors I have ever talked to want to know is, are there numbers that matter? We used to think, oh, if you have a certain number of followers, a certain number of people on your mailing list, a certain number of clicks or likes, that is going to help you. Is that actually true?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. I think we lost Jane again. Okay. So folks, until Jane comes back, I'm gonna put a pin in that question because I want to hear it from Jane, but we're gonna go ahead and scroll back through the chat and answer some more questions
I have
here.
a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about starting a Substack under a pseudonym, and what counts as platform when you create a memoir under your own name?
So that's the challenge with writing memoir under a fake name, is that it becomes very hard to promote your work. So if you are writing memoir, what you probably want to do is decide that you are going to own your story. Do the preliminary work you want to do, not asking people for permission to write about them, but letting them know what you have written about them. Maybe they will have a new take. You want to incorporate some of it. Rebecca Morrison, I'm going to call on you in just a second. Maybe they will say, oh man, you've got to change my name to something more different than that. They don't get to control how you tell your story.
Right.
But a lot of times I see memoirists who are like, oh, I'm going to use a fake name because then I won't get in trouble. They're going to find out. They're going to find out anyway. The reason to use a pseudonym is so that your relatives are less easy to Google. It does not actually protect you. It only hinders you from actually being able to promote your book. Now, I want to bring in somebody who has a really specific knowledge about this. Rebecca Morrison has been writing viral essays, nonfiction personal essays about her body image, about her relationship with her mom, about being Iranian, which is very topical right now, which is sad, but also great for Rebecca to have something public to say as an expert in the space. Rebecca, you ended up turning your memoir into middle grade fiction. How has your family dealt with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's been they don't want to know about it. They don't want to talk about it. A lot of my cousins, aunts and uncles don't even basically want to know what is it called? Acknowledge it. So I have created on my Facebook page a cutout group. So everything I've been posting, none of my family sees. It's a little bit sad, but understandable too. When you write about your family that is private and it's very deeply personal to them, it's their sister-in-law, it's their cousin and stuff. But Allison said something great. I had posted about this. Understanding their feelings has helped me still care about them and let them care about me and not bombard them with the promotion of this book. I'm lucky that my mother, who the book is about, has been very supportive, and my brothers are supportive. But nobody wants to hear about it, which I get. I think that happens with some, memoir writers, because my book is basically a memoir that's been turned into a middle grade.
And Rebecca, one more question before we get back to Jane here. You are writing YA middle grade fiction and you're working with a traditional publisher. What kind of things are your traditional publishers asking you to do to connect with that audience who generally do not purchase their own books?
Yeah, it's been a real learning experience. Trying to be on panels at conferences that are children's book conferences or American Library Association. So I've had to really educate myself with which big groups cover this kind of thing. So it's a little bit different. And they've been very good. I'm with a big publisher, but every time they ask me something, it's like, if you'd like to do this, and I'm like, yes, I would. I have to make a video for Macmillan's children's. So they ask you to do videos and little things, but the truth is, no matter how big your publisher is, you have to do a lot of work yourself, a lot of work if you want people to see your book.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Rebecca. We look forward to seeing your book, The Blue Dress, which is coming out in March from Macmillan. If you have middle grade kids in your life, they absolutely need that book. Jane, welcome back. Do you remember what you were talking about when you left us so abruptly? I think I was asking you about, do numbers actually matter?
Agents will tell you that the numbers matter, but I think they use often that as an excuse to reject you because it's the easy way out. I'm not saying that you shouldn't think about the numbers in terms of what progress are you making, what seems to work, where are you gaining traction, but I think it's a really weak measure generally of what success you're having.
Are there any numbers that matter at all? Like like when I published 7 drafts, my mailing list was 5,000 people. Now it's 16,000 people. I would hope that's helpful, but I don't know if it actually is.
I mean, generally, I would expect more out of that because you have 3 times the people potentially receiving that email, but we have to look at some other things too. What's the open rate? Has it remained consistent? Has it declined? I know that you often use email to help support sales of classes and retreats or services of other kinds, so you can actually measure the revenue that's coming out of each send. So I would be looking at those metrics because you can meet your goals with a smaller list if it's more engaged.
And I think that's really the key because I see Instagram accounts that have 20,000 followers and then they post a post and it's got 3 likes. And all I think is, oh, most of your followers must be bots.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I have a few specific questions from the chat. Sherry asked, do you feel that posting on Medium is useful at all anymore?
I have never recommended Medium. I think it's pivoted so many times. I can't particularly trust it, even though it's recently under new ownership and they've decided to kind of get rid of the bad practices. I don't see the future there. I mean, it's hard for me to argue with writers who say they're having all this success or they have this community there. And if you do, fine. But if you don't already have something that's showing you a payoff that matters to you, I would definitely not go there to start.
Right.
And I want to say, Jane, that my personal experience with Medium as a reader is somebody posts something on Facebook and I go, oh, that sounds cool. I'd like to read that. And then I get one paragraph and a paywall and I go, meh, I'm not going to bother.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's always discouraging. What do you say about generosity, Allison? You move forward with generosity.
Yeah.
That's how you find your people. That's great. I have some more questions in the chat. It's going by fast. Here. Robin asks, what about Facebook groups? Do you join them and post? What do you think about Facebook groups?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Allison is probably exhibit A for how Facebook can be used effectively in a community-driven fashion and a values-driven fashion. I think that rather than starting to flood the group with your own posts, it's much better to start off by engaging in the comments and showing your value, your empathy, your intelligence, your wisdom, whatever it is you have to share, show up in the conversations with it before you start posting every day where you might look a little more obnoxious as someone trying to take over and put yourself first.
And I think that answers Jennifer's question too. What if you're just exhausted with talking? You don't have to feel like you're creating content all the time. You could be a
No.
reader and a responder.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
nice way of also just, and you don't have to be on social media either, right? You don't have to do it if you don't want to. Great.
Which I think leads us to another really important question, which is, Jane, what have you seen in platforms that are not social media?
I guess is it annoying to say it depends on the definition of social media. Because there are lots of like what I would call closed communities that I don't consider social media. Like if you have a Patreon group or a Discord group, or if you're part of like if you're active on the Authors Guild message board or some of these places that are quite private in nature, but have really significant effects. So for example, I just mentioned the Authors Guild message board. I do not consider that social media, but when someone mentions something I'm doing in those message boards, I see an immediate effect over at my website or in a class or whatever it was that was mentioned, or people emailing me saying, someone mentioned you at, which has happened to me with Allison's groups before I was in them. So I think that, I often talk about the value of local, regional connections. But even if you're not active local or regionally, looking at your category or your genre, romance, mystery, memoir, there are all sorts of organizations and collectives that are there to support members and spread the word. Look at something like Tall Poppy Writers, which was started by women's fiction author Anne Garvin, a very powerful network. So those networks are out there, and it gives you a lot of the same benefits to social media without the headaches.
I like that. I like that a lot. We've had this question come up a couple of times. If you publish content that is part of your book or content that is part of your memoir or essays that are part of your collection, if you publish that on Substack, does it become unpublishable elsewhere? Like, will a publisher be like, oh no, I don't want that stuff anymore?
A book publisher is not going to care. And if they say they do, I would say they're probably lying to you, because books get published all the time with previously published work. I think the people who tend to care more are the literary journals, the places that publish poems, short stories, essays, and they have a lot of restrictions on how that material might have appeared in the past, especially if it was online somewhere in a public place, sometimes even in a private place. So just know the outlets that matter to you. And if you really want to target those outlets with material and they have that prohibition, then you have a decision to make.
And I think too, Melissa points out in the chat, she's publishing with Penguin Random House. They wanted 50% of her book to be original content. Um, the smaller the venue, the more they care because they want the audience. And if you've already published your short story and all your friends and family have read it, it lowers the audience who is going to go to the Picayune Times review and read it over there. That said, when I published 7 drafts, I'm going to say 60 to 70% of that book was a mix of blogs I published for Jane, blogs I published at Brevity, long Facebook comments, comments I had made in people's editorial letters, private emails I had written. And you know what? If somebody wanted to go and find all that material online and print it out and organize it and punch it in holes and put it in a binder, they deserve their free book.
Paula asks, I am consistent with posting content and also repurpose across platforms, which is really smart, Paula. But how to increase the reach beyond my few followers?
If you're really dissatisfied with your progress, and sometimes I think people are way impatient and they're not giving things time. But let's assume you've given it time. I think you need to look at who can you be a guest for? Who can you partner with? Where can you go where there's a bigger platform in order to increase your reach? So rather than staying on whatever island you might be on, seeing how you can take a little trip to a bigger island and bring some people back with you.
Yeah.
I agree. And that can be writing posts for places like Electric Literature, for places like Jane Friedman's blog, for places like the Brevity blog. We've got a whole Craft Talks webinar coming up tomorrow on writing about writing. But also look at where your potential readers are reading and see if there's anything you can write for that space. So if you are writing a memoir and it deals with your life as a nurse, nurses have conferences and organizations, and those organizations have newsletters, and the newsletters are always in need of guest articles. And that's a place where you can start establishing yourself as, I'm the person who has meaningful essays about nursing, which will help you later when your book finally comes out.
Right.
I have another thing to add. I think some people are expecting to get traction or followers for material that's simply not that interesting to a general audience. And there isn't any recognition of how to title things or how to start off a piece in a way that would actually interest a total stranger. And this kind of goes into some of the problems I see with people doing Substack and saying, well, I tried it and it didn't go anywhere. And all they're doing is like little musings about what happened in their garden that morning. Nothing against musings in your garden. But you have to be thinking strategically about how a piece of content is going to go much further than your original group.
When I first started writing about writing for the Brevity blog, what I had to say was not necessarily unique, but I had a real smart mouth when I was saying it. And so people got to know who I was through my voice. And that was the most powerful thing I had to share until I came up with original things to say, until I developed my teaching and my process, until I had something new to say. Mm-hmm. Sharla, what other questions do we have in the chat? And Jane, can we keep you like an extra 10 minutes? Is that okay for you? Awesome.
Even longer if you like.
Okay, so hang out, folks. We're going to try and get to lots of questions here. Sharla, what's up next?
Yeah, on the topic of time, Ellen asks, how do you manage the time involved to do all that's involved to create and build these relationships? And how do you manage the time to manage all your social media activity without losing half your day, especially if you're a writer and you want to continue to be writing?
Well, I did say that I've reduced my time spent on social media as my other platform areas have been strengthened. That said, sometimes I wonder if people are estimating these huge swaths of time that are eaten up just by doing what I described, posting on, 4 or 5 networks. It doesn't have to take this enormous amount of time that cuts into your writing time. I would say on average, I'm not spending more than an hour, and even that would be a generous amount. I would say 30 minutes tops per day. And there are some days when I don't get on at all. So I think you can get away with a small amount, but certainly these things have cycles. Sometimes, especially like when my book was launching, I was more active on social media, but when I'm generating new content, I'm going to be less active. So, I mean, I think you have to give yourself some grace here, but also, Sharla, you asked at the very beginning, do I schedule this stuff? And no, I don't. When I'm ready, when I want to be active, I get on and I post. I don't schedule. There's this, not to be too crass about it, but I always think about this old Buddhist parable about, or piece of Buddhist wisdom about tomorrow. I don't say that tomorrow at 2:42 I'm going to drop a fart. It just happens of itself. Think about your social media farts as just dropping when they drop. It's okay.
Right.
And if you are a person who is worried about getting lost in the scroll, set yourself a timer. Set yourself a countdown timer for 15 minutes and decide, okay, I am going to visit my 3 favorite Facebook groups. I am going to say one comment in each one of those, or ask a question or answer a question. I am going to post 2 things on the other network that I really like, and I'm going to repost 2 things that I like, and then I'm done. It can help to have that external deadline to be done.
Right. So Jane, I'm going to ask you to get out your crystal ball and predict what you see changing in the social media landscape. Do you see any trends coming up? You see anything happening? Do you anticipate things like that?
Yeah, it's change is the name of the game when it comes to social media. So yeah, it's definitely going to evolve. Nothing stays the same for more than a few months at a time. And also TikTok just finally got its own US division, and so people are kind of on pins and needles waiting to see what changes because of that. If you look at what the professionals say, the ones who analyze this stuff for a living, which I don't, they say there's a lot more energy and investment getting put into video. So that includes TikTok, but it also includes things like YouTube Shorts, YouTube more generally, where you're seeing maybe less investment and less energy would be on things like X or Facebook. That's not to say those networks don't work anymore or that you should abandon them. Every single week, I talk with authors who are succeeding with their own chosen places that work for them. Just yesterday, I spoke with an author who's big in the romance community, and I said, well, you must be using TikTok a lot because that's been the common theme for about 6 months now. And she said, no, I don't use it at all. I focus on Facebook and Instagram, and it works great. So again, it kind of goes back to this. There's no one size fits all. You can probably be successful on just about any platform you choose if you're consistent and you show up. But I can't deny that a lot of the power and attention and energy and money is going into video. But that's not an area that I like to participate in personally, unless it's long form video and YouTube, like classes and webinars and things.
Right.
And I want to say too, one of the trends that I'm seeing that I think is really positive for most of us is that glossy, filtered influencer look where everything is pretty and perfect and your space is perfectly staged and all that, especially with AI creating video. Those kind of videos are starting to play less. They are being received as fake. People do not like them as much. They genuinely want to see weird, funky haired you with your messy living room, just talking about what you're thinking about right this minute. It's okay to be yourself.
Mm. Right. So this is related to the last question. Are hashtags still a thing?
Not so much. They've really declined in importance and use. So I wouldn't sweat it. I would think about your alt text though. So alt text is the text that describes the images if you're posting any. So you want to make sure that you're describing things accurately and you're including any keywords or phrases that would help people find that content, like on Instagram in particular.
Is that also a way to be accessible to people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a question about social media pitch contests. Are they worth it? Is it worth it to do it on Twitter and Blue Sky? Like, is it a good place to pitch your
Oh
work?
gosh, I haven't heard anyone discuss those in so long. I can't say. Do either of you know, Allison or Charlotte, have you heard discussion about this?
I missed the question because I was
Oh,
answering something in the
sorry.
chat.
Pitch
Well,
contests online, like
Pitch
Twitter.
contests. I don't think they're happening as much anymore. And I think this goes in connection with the question that we had as well about, is there a reason to be or not be on X? Because it's become very ideologically associated in a way that it was not 2 years ago. I am finding that there are good pitch contests. There are great places to go and talk to agents, but they tend now to be their own event rather than something that's happening that used to happen on Twitter. Jane, X, you bailed off it. I have barely posted
yeah.
there. What do you think?
I mean, I've never been a huge fan of those contests anyway for two reasons. One is that I find that predators monitor them and then target those writers on another network or via email, trying to tempt them with who knows what sort of horrible offer. And also because I think that it only benefits a certain type of work, something that you can boil down and make sound sexy in like 160 characters. And I mean, I'm not saying that there weren't some good outcomes from pitch activities on Twitter or elsewhere, but it's really high pressure. And I don't know that it's a better way to pitch and succeed than traditional methods.
Yeah.
What about Pinterest? We've had a couple of questions about, is Pinterest a thing? Apparently, people are sometimes using it as a search engine. Is it useful for writers?
In fact, I just did a free class on Pinterest with someone who's very avidly using it. You can find it at my YouTube channel right now. Again, it's free. And, she made a really good case for why it can be useful. And she's a novelist, and I'm blanking on her name. Forgive me. Maybe someone can pop it into the chat. So I think there's potential there. The one small warning, I don't want to scare anyone. That's not the purpose. There are murmurings that an AI company might buy Pinterest. And I know people tend to have very strong feelings about AI and AI ownership. So, it's just another, I guess it's another principle to keep in mind, that the ownership of all of these platforms is subject to change.
Right. Samantha asked a really good question. Samantha says, I understand the idea of writing essays, guest blogs, etc., to position oneself as an expert when you're a nonfiction writer. But what does that look like for fiction writers?
Again, this is where I would kick the can down the road to Lee Stein, because she's so good at discussing this. The other person I would highly, highly recommend, and none of her stuff is behind a paywall, is Cassie Mans Murray. She writes a Substack called Pine State Publicity, where she talks about this exact issue all the time. How do you get attention for books, whether it's a novel or a memoir or something else, by the author participating in some type of activity? And I think she covers it beautifully, with nuance, with humor.
Mm. Yeah, and you always have something to say about writing if you're a writer, the craft of writing,
Yes.
the
Yes.
difficulties of writing, the life and the challenges. Great. Do you have any questions that you see, Allison, that I didn't catch?
Let's try and get just one or two last questions. What about going live? Isabella's wondering about Instagram lives or Facebook lives to promote your book and writing from your living room. Has that worked for newbies? I've seen one successful Instagram live series, which is Allison Shelton's Where I'm From, where she has different authors engage with a poem and write their own version of it, and then we talk about it. Jane, do you see anything happening with live?
The only thing I've seen within the last 6 months would be authors using TikTok Live to do what I would consider QVC or home shopping network types of videos. So they'll have a new deluxe edition, or they'll be packing up orders to send off to their loyal fans, whatever. And that tends to lead to more ordering. It's a pretty fascinating phenomenon. That's not the only thing that TikTok lives are used for. I've also heard people who are book talkers will do interviews with authors when their book comes out. I think you could certainly replicate that on Instagram Live or elsewhere, but it does seem to be on the upswing for TikTok, especially.
And you can also have guests come on your live, so you can do a
Yeah.
conversation. So you can also cross-platform, so both you can reach their followers as well as your own followers. So it's great to do it that way. And we do have a Writer's Bridge recording on alternative ways to promote your book. So if you're interested in figuring out other ways to do that, definitely check out YouTube at Writer's Bridge.
So in just a minute, we are going to give you guys our top 3 takeaways for today. What's something that you can do now to move forward with your social media, with your platform? Before we do our top 3 takeaways, we just want to remind you, join us at Craft Talks tomorrow for Andrea Firth's Writing About Writing or Stephen Nezovich's email classes. Join me and Jane February 4th for Writer Mind, Marketing Mind, which is going to be a whole exciting thing about how do we do all of this social media and everything else, and how do we monitor our time and figure out what to do. Want to also remind you guys, the first Tuesday of each month, we will be doing another pitch and platform session with literary agent Jessica Berg, where we hear people's pitches live right then and there, and we give you feedback on, is that pitch working, why or why not, and what kind of platform would you need to support this book. Those episodes are not recorded. This episode right now is recorded. Some of you may even be watching this on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. I think I'm supposed to say that, like ding the little bell or something like that. But the pitch and platform episodes are live only. And as a subscriber to the Writer's Bridge, you will get an invitation for that so that you can decide if you would like to come next Tuesday. We would like to then ask, join us next episode as well when Sari Botten, the person who created Memoir Land, talks about multiple platforms and one vision. How do you build an audience around your mission? Please do also subscribe to Jane Friedman's The Bottom Line. There are both free and paid options, and it is a wonderful way to find out what is happening in publishing. Let's hear our final top tips. Sharla, what's your top tip? What's our takeaway?
I would say my first, I don't know if it's a tip, but it's a takeaway, is first of all to guard your time and decide what you want to do and don't feel like you have to do anything. And I guess the other thing is to see what people are doing that you enjoy and then take note of it and see if it's something that you would enjoy doing. So if you're in a live and you enjoy how they're, formatting their life, maybe that's something you want to do when it comes to it. It's just always looking at ways to both participate but also mine ideas.
I love that. Jane, what's your top tip?
What excites you? It's what excites you that's going to lead to your success, because you're not hopefully going to get tired of what's exciting to you, and excitement is contagious. And you're trying to keep that energy level going.
I love that. And I would say, again, nobody wants to be your customer. They want to be your friend. And by taking an interest in what other people are doing, what other people are writing, what other people are publishing, by celebrating other writers, that gives you something to talk about. And you get to watch what they're doing and see if that's behavior that you want to do too. You don't have to make it up. Pick your role model and figure out what kind of thing are they doing. Does it work for you? Thank you all so much for being here today on the Writer's Bridge. And as always, we invite you to unmute yourselves for a joyful goodbye. Thanks for being here.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
James.
you so much. Amazing.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.
It was terrific. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks,
Awesome.
folks.
Bye.